Reider's Block is presented to you by Sandia Sportsbook, where sports fans go to drink, dine, watch, and win. All right, welcome back to another episode of Reider's Block. I am your host, as always, Journal staff writer Sean Reider. We are recording from the home studio in the great state of Michigan. Got a great interview, though, lined up with Reider and Burns, covers Minnesota for 24/7 Sports, does an awesome job covering Minnesota. There's a lot of good guys in that Minnesota beat, and he is one of the best. Excited to share that conversation with you shortly. But first, as always, want to plug the podcast we've been putting out recently. Obviously, Reider's Block, Talking Grammar, Prep Central, a lot of really good stuff coming. If you want to support those podcasts, please subscribe to the Journal YouTube channel. Please follow our feeds on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That makes a big difference and allows us to kind of keep doing the things that we really like doing. We will also have, we did not do one this week, but we will have live shows coming back with me and Jeff Grammer. I believe we're going to be doing one after the Rate Bowl on December 26th. Obviously a big game, one of the bigger games UNM has had in a while. So we will have a live show out there. Encourage you guys to tune in live and give us your questions, your comments via Twitter and YouTube. We love the engagement. Think it makes for an awesome show. And obviously there's a lot to talk about right now with New Mexico football heading into their game against Minnesota. But on that note, we will get into that a little bit more with this interview with Reider and Burns. Hope you enjoy. All right, today I am pleased to be joined by Reider and Burns. Minnesota 24/7 Sports does a great job covering the Gophers. Reider, thanks for coming on, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you having me on. Excited to talk about Richard Pitino. Jason X, New Mexico Lobos team.
We do have, there's a pretty good one. The connections there with, the Richard Pitino bowl game. Do you have any favorite memories of maybe cover Pitino back in the day?
As you know, Pitino's not afraid to get into it a little bit on social media. He's not afraid to say what's on his mind, which I think in this day and age, especially as someone who then gets to use those quotes, I'm definitely okay with it.
Yeah, and you have you got a good one there right now in Nico Medved too. So a lot of good Mountain West connections. But Rate Bowl, obviously, December 26th, New Mexico and Minnesota. Kind of a coup for New Mexico to be in this game. Everybody kind of expected that they would be in the New Mexico Bowl. Turned out they're having a hard time getting good opponents to get in the New Mexico Bowl, and ended up getting a pretty good one in Minnesota. Finished 7-5 this season, 5-4 in the Big Ten. Notably bludgeoned then-ranked Nebraska on a Friday night. I remember that game pretty sharply, but got bludgeoned by Iowa, I believe, not too long after. Ended up beating Wisconsin in the season finale. Not some solid games, but maybe not ultra competitive when you look at the score in terms of games gets the top of the Big Ten and all that. What was this season for Minnesota football, kind of relative to preseason expectations, and what kind of is the general mood around the program at this point?
Yeah, the Vegas win total for this team was 6.5, so Minnesota hits the over. But their way to getting there was a roller coaster every single Saturday, Friday, whatever it may have been, where Minnesota finished the season 7-0 at home. That's the first time they've gone undefeated at home since 1967. I mean, they took care of business where they needed to, but the issue is on the other side of things, they were absolutely, and I think putting it kindly, dreadful away from Minneapolis this year. And you mentioned going into Iowa being down 31-0, 20 minutes into the game, where you've allowed points on offense, defense, special teams. You go into and you're the unfortunate opponents for night games at Oregon, night games at Ohio State, both of which teams are in the college football playoff. You go out to Cal and you fall apart after midnight local time against JKS, and then you go to Wrigley Field, where I don't have to tell you, the baseball fan, they made Wrigley Field look like Coors Field, where it was 38-35, where the Gopher offense comes alive, but the Gopher defense has nothing resembling a stop in them the entire game. And Minnesota misses 2 field goals in that game, especially one to put it into overtime at the end. It was a roller coaster of emotions. Or even the last game of the season against UW-Madison. Again, that game was played in a snow globe. I've covered Gopher football for 15 years. I have lived my entire 33 years in this state. I mean, I just got done, as you can probably tell, shoveling out there in the great state of Minnesota. But I've never covered a game in which every media timeout, they're out there with shovels in between, trying to make sure people can see the hashes, can see what's going on, just very unique games each and every week. But at the end of the season, you look up, they're above 500 in the Big Ten again. It's just the way it got there was exhausting, I think, for both media and fans alike.
Offensively, and I'm not too far behind either. When we're done with this, I got to hop out and do a little shoveling of my own. But offensively, it seemed like from the outside looking in, a little bit of a mixed bag in some sense. It did seem like from what I've watched, there was a good amount of good from quarterback Drake Lindsey this season. And then you do end up kind of looking at kind of the empirical stats. I think this was the lowest, kind of, I don't want to say the worst because they didn't run it a whole lot, but it was statistically the worst rushing offense in the Fleck era to this point. What was your kind of read on the Gophers offense and how things kind of ended up turning out this season?
The run game, how much time do you have? Where in Minneapolis, RTB doesn't stand for just row the boat. It's supposed to stand for run the ball. And they weren't able to run the football really at any point this year. Now, there's a multitude of different factors that go into that. A big part, and I would say the biggest part, was the fact that their star tailback, Darius Taylor, who, if he ever can put together a 12-game sample size in a row, is going to be an all Big Ten running back. He missed 75% of the season. Soft tissue injury after soft tissue injury after soft tissue injury. And when you don't have your best back, and then your number two back, who you got from Marshall, A.J. Turner, tears his knee in the non-conference, it's been a running theme as a kind of a joke here out in Minneapolis, where it's the angry running back god on odd years. This is the third straight odd year where you look at 2021, 2023, and now 2025, where the Gophers run RB3, 4, and 5 for large chunks of this year. And just in the current constructs of college football, they're not built for that. Now, for this specific bowl game, Darius Taylor is healthy. He's ready to go. We have seen in the previous two bowl games with Darius Taylor that I can assure you I'm not going to be telling Spence Nowinski anything different that he doesn't know, but they're going to try and force feed him the football. He is averaging 30 touches per bowl game, and he's averaging something silly like 6 yards per touch on those. I mean, he is one of the best pass-catching backs you're going to watch all year. They're going to use him in different ways. But also some of it's the offensive line. And I'll be the first to tell you, the offensive line for Minnesota was not up to snuff. I mean, I had people that I really respect telling me that this was the least physical offensive line they've seen in the Fleck era. Now, they've gotten a couple of weeks to rest their bodies. They're going against a Mountain West defense that I'm well aware is the number one, at least against FBS opponent run defense in the Mountain West. I mean, Jackson Eck and especially Keyshawn James Newby, like I am well aware of how talented some of these guys are, and Minnesota's going to have to know where Eck and the defensive end are at all times. But you are going to see I feel very confident in saying it, a very steady dose of Darius Taylor in Phoenix the day after Christmas.
That's something I kind of talked about a little bit. I believe you were on the that kind of bull Zoom press or whatever. The idea that you throw on Minnesota and you're always going to see this physical offensive line and all that.
Yep.
In terms of you talked a little bit about in terms of the run game and all that as well. In terms of protecting Drake Lindsey and kind of leading the season that he had, what kind of was your thoughts on Lindsey's season? How things kind of played out for him?
Yeah, Minnesota, with quarterback specifically, doesn't have the greatest track record. They haven't had a quarterback drafted in your or my lifetimes, and there's a reason for that. Now, they did get Max Brosmer a start just this past season for the Minnesota Vikings, but I think Drake Lindsey is the most promising freshman quarterback the Gophers have had in a very long time. One of the most underrated parts about Drake is his ability to take care of the football, where he went the entire month of November without an interception. He is not the most fleet of foot quarterback you will watch. He's taller than me. It's 6'5", 6'6". He's got a really good arm, but he is certainly a pocket passing quarterback. He's got the arm to make any throw on the field. The question is, who is going to be catching the football from him? Who is going to be trying to keep him upright against Keyshawn there? Again, Minnesota's left tackle, Nathan Roy, is the more athletic of the two tackles. So I'll be very curious to see what Nowinski does in terms of trying to get pressure on Drake Lindsey. But I am very excited about the future. Drake came out and said after the Wisconsin game that he's going to be coming back for 2026. He's already re-signed to Minnesota, which welcome to this day and age where we actually have to talk about college football players re-signing. 'Tis the season. Can't wait for collective bargaining in 2030 or whenever that's going to be coming down the pipeline. But Drake is the straw that stirs the drink for Minnesota's offense. He's had to be all season because of the run game issues, and I think you're going to see him sling it 30 times in Phoenix.
Defensively, this is a group that gave up, I believe, like 23.4 points per game, something like that. But they generated an exceptional 35 sacks in the season, far and away the most ever in the Fleck era. I think a certain name comes to mind when you talk about that kind of production, and I can kind of let you get into him. But why is this group so good, kind of rushing the passer this season?
Yeah, Anthony Smith. He's the guy you're talking about, where he was one of the best defensive linemen in the country in terms of sacks, in terms of tackles for loss. I don't know that New Mexico has really gone against a defensive lineman that looks like him this season, and I mean that with no shade to the Mountain West, but he is 6'6", 280 pounds of pure power. He's not going to beat you with speed, but what he is going to do is press you back into the quarterback. He is very, very good at that. He's got great length, great size, and he's been able to do that all season long. Now, the thing you also have to know about the Gopher defense is they were incredibly Jekyll or incredibly Hyde, and they're either giving up 38 points to a Northwestern offense that looks like the greatest show on turf, like Isaac Bruce and Kurt Warner out there running around, or they're going to put you on the turf 7 to 9 times in the game. I mean, that's been the issue all season long, is they've been much better at home. On the road, they have been one of the worst pass defenses in the entire country, where they've turned every opposing quarterback into a Heisman Trophy contender. So that's the thing I'm going to be very curious to see, is which version of the Gopher defense travels. Are they going to turn Jack Lane and Dorian Thomas and Keegan Johnson into, pick your favorite football team, but it's been very Jekyll and Hyde for Minnesota. They're going to sell out to stop the run. They've got one very good corner in John Nestor, who has been someone I anticipate is going to be put on Keegan Johnson. But how does Minnesota slow down Dorian Thomas is going to be my question, because very, very good player. Minnesota's linebackers, I wouldn't say, are the most athletic you'll see, but trying to slow down those two has got to be a priority.
Thomas is a guy that, really from the start of the season, he is it's weird in the sense that he kind of disappeared in some games against Mountain West opponents, but every time they played a Michigan, they played a UCLA or whatever, he always showed up in that sense. So definitely, I think he could present. I think you're dead on. I think he could present a little bit of a, maybe not a mismatch, problems there. Outside of the guys like Smith, though, Taylor, Lindsey, who are the and Nestor as well, who are the other players you're kind of looking at and thinking, all right, these are names that Lobo fans should be looking out for?
Yeah, Coy Parrott, certainly. I'm going to be very curious what the second-team All-Big Ten safety is going to be playing in this game. What do I mean by that? Well, the Gophers have already had 5 receivers hit the portal, and their top receiver, Lemeke Brockington, declared for the NFL draft, but I'm very unclear if he's going to be playing in this game, where, again, we see guys do it all the time, and Lemeke's not projected to be an NFL draft pick, but I would advise him to play in the Rape Bowl against New Mexico. But if he doesn't, or at least with the amount of opt-outs and transfers they've had at receiver, I think that Coy Parrish might be seeing some time on offense, where you're going to see him start at safety. He is Minnesota's free safety, led the defense in snaps this year. He's also going to be their primary return man. But how they use Coy Parrish in this game is going to be fascinating to me, because they need playmakers at receiver. And you're going to see some younger guys getting some action, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see what Minnesota did with him in September, which was give him 10, 15, 20 snaps on offense and see if you can't get some explosive plays, because that's been a part of the Gopher offense that's been lacking, is explosives. And they're 3-4 yards in a cloud of dust, and Coy Parrish is somebody that I think can do that. Now, I would also say defensively, watch out for a guy like Maverick Baranowski, which is an outstanding Big Ten linebacker name, by the way. When you think Baranowski, you think of some 1980s neck roll. He just announced here this past week as an honorable All Big Ten mention. He's going to be returning for his senior season. He is the throwback. He is the green dot. He is the Jackson Eck of this defense, where he's going to be making all the adjustments. So how they use Coy Parrish, and then can Baranowski slow down Dorian Thomas and also help in the run game?
Minnesota, of course, and this was kind of noted in press conferences before this, undefeated in bowls, I believe, under Fleck and all that as well. Yep. And I always thought it was a little silly when, people throw out bowl records to kind of compare coach to coach and stuff like that. But honestly, being undefeated in this era of college football in particular, to me, that seems seems pretty impressive. How is Minnesota kind of treating this bowl, and why do you think they have been kind of so successful in the postseason under Fleck?
Yeah, I think Fleck and let's be real. When we look at those 6-0, that 6-0 bowl record, it's not like we're talking about the college football playoff or they're going to play in the Rose Bowl in these games. They've been in these type of bowl games where you're facing a formidable opponent. And I agree that this game, just like it is in Vegas, probably 55-45 Minnesota if you played this game 100 times. But they take the game seriously, where whoever is playing in the game, it's another opportunity to play. It's an opportunity to get your feet wet for 2026. And even his staff, I mean, they're told, take this very, very seriously because we want to win this game. And especially in a game like this, where even from the New Mexico perspective, you don't think Jason Eck personally, as the guy who grew up in Wisconsin, went to UW-Madison, played as a Badger against the Golden Gophers. You don't think that guy doesn't hate Minnesota in his blood? Plus, professionally, you don't think he knows that he might be on the short list for the Wisconsin job in 2026 if Wisconsin misses a bowl game for yet another season? So I think that both personally for Jason Eck and then professionally as well, if he can have a Minnesota win on his resume already by the time that job potentially becomes open next year, that would probably do a lot in his ledger to make sure that he is one of the top candidates for it. So I think whether you look at the Minnesota perspective of it, I'm sure they know that, or even the New Mexico perspective of, hey, we got a bowl game that maybe we weren't supposed to be in, and we get to face a Big Ten team of which we already throttled earlier this season in UCLA. I think there's a lot of different factors in this game where you're going to see, I think, a lot of high energy effort plays on both sides trying to make sure that their team comes out victorious.
I agree completely, and I agree completely, but I will say there seems to be a marked gap between this Minnesota team and that UCLA team that they play. That was not the UCLA team that beat Penn State. I'll say that, man. They got hammered, but let's kind of wrap it up on this, man. You kind of touched a little bit on it there, but do you kind of have a score prediction and kind of feel for how it's all going to play out come December 26th?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to figure out yet what I think of the matchup in the trenches, where I watched the Washington-Boise State game like you did, where I thought Boise State had a really good year. I thought they were a really good team. I know Washington had been a wagon at certain points, but they absolutely throttled Boise State. And I think of so many of these bowl games where it's even with Minnesota's offensive line, where I've told everybody already, and I'll say it again, were not incredibly impressive this year. But now they don't have to go against 6'4", 300-pound beef eaters or 6'5". I mean, again, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm well aware of how gifted Spence Nowinski is. Again, he is someone that coached here in the great state of Minnesota. They have the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year in Jackson Eck. Keyshawn James Newby leads the entire Mountain West in pressures and hurries. Like, this is a very good defense. But can Minnesota, as the game goes on, overwhelm New Mexico up front? Like, I think through the first half, this thing's going to be close. But as we get into the, third and fourth quarter, is the Minnesota size and physicality going to be able to wear them down? I will also tell you, historically in bowl games too, we see Minnesota get pretty wacky. Now, you're going to see a trick play or two, potentially on special teams as well. But I think where I'm currently at is probably saying Darius Taylor has a late touchdown and the Gophers win 24-20, somewhere around there. But I expect this to be one of those games where you turn it on the day after Christmas. You've got leftovers on your plate. It's in the middle of the afternoon, and you actually get to watch a really good football game where both teams care. You're going to see the best players for both teams, it sounds like, out there. It should be a really fun atmosphere at Chase Field.
Yeah, 24-20. I think that's just 1 point off the prediction I sent you yesterday. But so I think we're kind of right in line. But Ryan, thank you so much for hopping on today, man, and talking Gophers. I really appreciate it, and I believe I'll be seeing you in Phoenix.
Yeah, I'll be out there.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate you today.